Hello everybody, this is Unintentional Hackers, students as the wildest and weakest link, or however backwards. This is just a collection of stories of crazy things I've seen in the schools. So who am I and why am I qualified? My name is Jacob Thompson. That QR code, I promise, just goes to my LinkedIn. My website's there. I spent 15 years-ish working my way up from a help desk in the second largest school district in Washington State, all the way up to the top tier infrastructure security engineer in that school district. I've seen just about anything a student can do, and I've had to explain it to parents, staff, everybody, how they did it. So how do kids even get to this point? They're tech savvy. They are digital natives, which means they were born with computers in their hands. I know I'm guilty of it. My son first picked up my cell phone, was playing with it. I was like, that's mine, give it to me, here's a tablet. So they've had technology since basically they were born. And because of that, they have been able to spot security blind spots that a lot of people don't think about. They figure out how to bypass filters, they exploit weak systems, passwords, and they cause unintended disruptions. I know as a kid, all we had in my high school was a computer lab, and I was a jerk in there. I would figure out how to open everybody's CD-ROM drive. I would figure out how to send huge ping packets on test days and have all my friends do it so we didn't have to take the tests. But where is it coming from with the kids these days? It's honestly from a place of curiosity. They see something that they possibly don't quite understand, or they feel it'll give them an edge somewhere and they try to exploit it. Like I said earlier, filter bypassing, system disruptions like a DDoS attack from within inside. I've seen them access grading systems and change their grades. And information obfuscation and digital no passing is amazing, and I have some examples of that. So the first case today I'm going to talk about is the portable VPN. As a security engineer, I thought I was doing a great job. Had great filters, had great tools to keep the web proxies from working, was doing great. And then a teacher comes to me and goes, this kid is on Facebook on a lab computer. I'm like, well, how? Couldn't figure it out. For like a week, I was jumping into this kid's class, pretending like I was doing something with the teacher's computer. Comes to find out he somehow installed a VPN onto a USB drive. And with that USB drive, he could plug it into any computer, run the VPN on that, and you completely bypassed all our filters. What we learned from that is we need USB port security. Digital note passing. Who here remembers how kids used to pass notes in school? I was not popular enough to get a note passed to me, but I definitely saw it. You fold up a little note, you pass it, do you like me? Check yes or no, pass it back. Well, the way they're doing that now, especially in the K through 12, is through Google Docs, Google Slides, any Google Office product. And they're obscuring it. Can anybody tell me what language that is right there? I would say wingdings looking at it, but it's not. Anybody, nobody? It's Ender speak from Minecraft. And you can see the translation. This is just an example, but I changed the teacher's name. But what they're also doing is they're going into Google Docs or whatever, typing out the message, saving it, and then deleting it. Because they know that as an IT department, we can see what's in their Google files. So they go and save it, delete it, and then they know to go in the version history, and you can see the entire conversation of everything. And it impressed me when I saw it. I would have never thought to do that. I go too far? Nope. Another pain point that students have exploited is teachers. Teachers are overworked. They value convenience over security 100% of the time. They're very resistant to security measures like MFA. The school district I worked for actually had to fight the teacher union because the teachers didn't want to use their own phones to use MFA. The way I got around that was, fine, you don't want to use your phone? I will print you one-time pad codes, and there'll be 10 of them, And when those are exhausted and you can't log in, you have to come get 10 more, or you can use your phone. But I've seen teachers write their passwords, on sticky notes right on their monitor. Problem with that is everything's single sign-on. So they get their sign-on for Clever, and that leads to a different system, which leads to a different system, and all of a sudden they're in the grade book, and a kid who hasn't been to school in 2 weeks has A's in every class. So some other things I've seen. This one was pretty weird when I got it. We had our BIOS locked down with what we thought was a secure password. A fifth grader managed to find a Windows 95 install disk, a CD-ROM drive, and figure out our BIOS password to change the boot order. Installed Windows 95, and it worked. And the reason he did that, apparently his dad was in IT, and Windows 98 would flag and get our filters put on it, but Windows 95 would not. So he strictly did it just so he could get around our filters. Google Games. Google, I think it's Forms, you can build games in, and games are the bane of the existence in a school district. Kids are always trying to play games, and you can't block Forms because everything uses Google Forms. So I have literally remoted into kids' computers, seen the exact web address they go to, put it into my block filter, through the remote session, refresh his page so it blocks, and then he can't figure out what I'm doing, and just that I'm even watching him, and he continues going to different games, and the cycle repeats and repeats. DDoS for friends, I spoke with this earlier. Kids figure out how to send huge ping requests, and then they tell their friends, and I mean, I've been doing it since I was in school, so I'm sure they figured it out. Pencil lead is one that's been pretty prevalent lately. Most of the Chromebooks, the way that they're designed, they provide power through USB always. If you put a pencil lead from a mechanical pencil in there, it fries the USB port. Problem with that is the USB ports are soldered onto the main board most of the time, and it bricks the entire computer. I saw a lot of this because the kid had an older Chromebook, and their buddy had the new hotness, and he's like, I don't want this one no more. They'll have to give me a new one. And it took a while to figure out why some of the old Chromebooks were dying. I was like, these still have like 4 years left on the license. They should still work. Why are they all dying? And then I got a closer look, and I saw one with burn marks and that magical electronic smell. So why are schools vulnerable to kids? Mostly it's inadequate funding and understaffed IT teams. I worked for one school district. There was approximately 4,000 students across 5 different schools with 600 some odd staff, and there was 2 IT guys. We did everything from I don't know how to work my computer to we have to migrate everything to the cloud to be compliant with something. Can you do it? Yeah, I'll figure it out. Limited monitoring. We can only monitor when we're at school, or we used to be only able to monitor while the kids were at school, and even now we have to get parents to sign documentation to say we're okay to monitor them while they're at home. Weak enforcement, policy enforcement. The easiest one I can say on this is, the FBI warning you get when you watch movies back in the day? That's a real thing, and it applies to streaming services. A science teacher wanted to show a Netflix documentary. We told her no 1,000 times. She went to the school board. The school board told us we had to do it. We did it. Netflix figured out we had to pay $180,000 because she showed it 6 times. So weak policy enforcement. We had the policy, but we got overridden. And then legacy infrastructure, especially in smaller school districts. When I first joined that school district, the most up-to-date server they had was a Dell R410, and this was in 2021. I have no idea how they kept it running, but it worked. Why awareness doesn't equal control when it comes to kids. Students don't respond to corporate-style cybersecurity training. You can't sit them down and tell them, hey, you need to not share your password with Timmy because X, Y, and Z. If they are logged into a computer under you and they do something, it's you who did it, not them. the social dynamics of it, kids are automatically going to be more curious than most adults when it comes to this kind of thing. If they see a peer do it, they want to know how they did it and if they can do it. And then also gamified rebellion. Students turn rules into competitive games. They will say, hey, I did this. And another student will be like, did you? I don't know how to do that. Can you teach me? And it'll just snowball from there and it'll get worse and worse and worse. So the insider threat redefined, I'm sure many people have seen this kind of thing. There's the unintentional insider, someone who clicks malicious links, bypass security controls by accident, not really trying. You have the mischievous insider, where their kids or people actively experimenting with systems, they're testing their boundaries and sharing discoveries with peers. And then you have the malicious insider, which I would say 99% of the time students don't fall under. They fall under the first two categories, but they're the kids, or even in your organization's adults, who are doing things with malicious intent. So some mitigation strategies. There's behavioral monitoring softwares that a lot of schools are investing in, where it's not only what they're doing, but how they're doing it that is being tracked. I have not yet to get this implemented in any of my school districts I've worked for, but digital citizenship programs, teaching kids that what you do on the internet is a reflection of yourself. You're not anonymous, especially to the group of people who are here. We all know how to find you, I guarantee it. And then technical controls, enforce multi-factor authentication, even if you get pushback from teachers, least privilege access, and enhanced logging capabilities are all things that are very helpful and has helped me in investigations to show what kids did and how they did it. Going back to, you can't secure students like employees. Again, they're not going to listen to a training about why clicking on links is bad or why you shouldn't share your passwords. You have to come up with ways to help them, and that speaks their language. And I have tried several different ways, and I'll get to them, but most of them have failed. So again, what's the answer here? Rethink the insider threat, like I talked about. Don't automatically assume, especially kids, are doing things maliciously on purpose. They're probably just curious and pushing their boundaries. A good story is I had a really awesome resource officer who was a sheriff, county sheriff, and he would literally say, this can go one of two ways. I can give you a felony, or you can promise not to do this again. And most of the time they promise not to do it again. Invest in student-centric defenses when it comes, if you're a school admin. Think about what the students are doing and tailor it to them. Secure the front row. The people who you're teaching are the ones who need the most security because they're the most vulnerable, because they are underage. They're very impressionable. Foster digital citizenship programs. I think before kids get assigned a one-to-one Chromebook, they should have to go through some kind of class about how to act on the internet. Because again, you put it on the internet, it's there forever. There's programs like Cyber Patriot, which I've been a part of, which teaches how to secure networks. And every kid that I've taught or mentored through those programs has come out amazing, and they've gone on to the IT world, and they had the ability to mess with me as an IT admin, but they never did because I taught them the ethics of it, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. And then last here is start in the home. I don't know how many times my daughter has gotten in trouble and I've taken away her phone and her friend gives her another phone and she's right back to doing what she's not supposed to be doing because she's in trouble. And she never gets away with it because I monitor my network. You can monitor your home networks. Comcast, you can see every device. Most fiber providers, you can see everything that's logged in. Start with the home. Teach the digital citizenship to your kids that you would expect from your employees. And with that, thank you for your attention. I finished 40 seconds early. Are there any questions? Yes?
So you have a lot of experience with the students who are out today, all this technology, and obviously they're going to grow up, they're going to graduate, and they're going to enter the workforce. Have you seen how the students are acting during their time impacting your work now? So
the question is, have I seen how the students acting has impacted them now? Yes, so talk about the Cyber Patriot program that I was a mentor and a coach for. One of the teams I coached took second at nationals in DC, and everyone on that team is in cybersecurity right now because they were from like 2018, and they have been awesome. And I've also seen kids who do a bunch of malicious things who are now adults in jail. So, like I said, the way kids are taught and how they are brought up strongly affects their ongoing life. I was wondering why my wrist was vibrating. My timer was going off. Any other questions?
You mentioned the graphite and the USB port. Are there any other TikTok trends that have affected you?
Vape sensors are in all the bathrooms in the school district I work for, and there was a TikTok trend about basically going into your school bathroom and just destroying it, and that was the school that it happened in where I was. That's all they destroyed was the vape sensor. But I've seen other schools where they just tore the sinks off the wall, but like they were specifically targeting that, and I think it's because a lot of students were getting in trouble for vaping in school. Funny story, do you know who vapes more, males or females in the school age? Females. For every 100 female sensors that went off, only 10 would go off. So it was like 10 to 1. It was ridiculous. But then I thought about it for a while. It's because boys use snuffs and chewing tobacco and other things.
So there was a talk at DEF CON about hacking those vape sensors. Have you seen any of that happening or been aware of it?
There was a talk. The question was, there was a talk at DEF CON about hacking the vape sensors. I personally have not seen it in my school districts, thankfully, and we monitor them pretty heavily because it was a huge thing in our district. So.
I'm a part-time college professor, so I take them from you. And then, is there something that they are doing in high school that they are not punished to, and there's a danger for them to bring into college?
So the question was, is there something they're doing in high school that they're not being punished for that they can take into the college? Yeah, like I said, a lot of it, the punishments come down to what the admins want to do, what the recommendations of the security officers in the schools. I've seen kids that have changed their grades, given themselves all A's. They've done malicious harm to their computers, and they got no repercussions from it because they said they were sorry. But I've also seen kids, especially nowadays, they are wearing those Ray-Bans, and I think you told me about this and I looked it up. They are cheating on tests with it, and it's very hard to catch them because they're built with AI and it's right there. But those are the things that I've seen recently about not, like, they don't get in trouble for stuff because they're underage, they're just kids, and I think they need to be held more accountable because it does translate into college.
Yeah, I saw a lot of things happening at college level, and it's like next level too.
Do you think the parents need to be held more accountable versus the kids?
So the question was, do I think the parents need to be held more accountable versus the kids? Ultimately, yes and no. A parent should be responsible for their kid, but for instance, in the state I live in, once the kid turns 13, they can tell their doctor that they don't want their parent to see their medical record, and they can't. So I think having a strong family bond and instructing your kid in the right way to do things, and setting the expectation soon and early is the best way to help mitigate that. I really wish I could go back in time raising my kids and give them the exact same video game consoles and electronics that I got on mine. Like, okay, you're 7, so you get a PlayStation now. But my friends have tablets and Xboxes. This is what you got. Play GoldenEye. I don't care.
So you said that you had some issues with portable VPN just on USB. Have you guys looked at just banning portable apps in general?
So the question was, I had portable VPNs, and we looked at banning just portable apps, and I think, yes, we have banned most portable apps, but there are some that teachers use, and that's another thing is I had a question once of, well, why don't you just ban everything and then just whitelist what you need? And the problem with that is the internet is so interconnected, so if I ban site X, I also have to, or if I unban site X, I have to unban site A and Z and F, and those lead to other things too. So it's really hard, and it's basically by the seat of your pants. Just, I've spent days just ban that one, ban that one, ban that one. So it's hard, but yeah, we've tried. Yes.
So budgetarily, it's hard to have endpoint protection and control for a large number of students. Have you found a good solution for that?
So the question was, it's budget-wise, it's very hard with endpoint protection on scale like in a school district, and we found solutions. So it depends on the school district. Like I said, I worked for the second largest school district in Washington State. They had no problem paying that bill. But then I also worked for an extremely small school district that had no budget. And there are programs where you basically get together with other small school districts in your area and you make a purchase as if you're a large one, because you get discounts for the more licenses generally. So that's the way we did it. And we used, it was the purple one, I don't remember. Sentinel one, yeah. We tried Microsoft Defender for a long time, and Defender is way better than it used to be, especially when you get the E5 license, but it's nowhere near as good as Sentinel one.
How do you protect like the Chromebook endpoints, because those can't have any kind of EDR agent, right?
Correct. Google actually is pretty good about it, like the Google Suite, especially when you pay for it. So most school districts, especially smaller school districts, operate on the free plan. Your government agency school, you get free G Suite for, I think it's like 4,000 users or something like that. But when you pay for it, you can see where the geolocation of that computer. You can get all the logs off of it very easily, but you have to pay for it per license. So again, it's a budgetary constraint.
There's also several filters available that have agents. Well, they install as Chrome extensions.
Yeah, and there's also some extensions too. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
It's quite funny. I've been listening to what you've been saying, and I agree with everything you say. I work with the state of South Dakota, and I go to all the schools at least once every 2 years, and we do risk assessments using the CIS benchmarks, and then we do a NESA scan on their school. But it's, when you talk about vape sensors, a vape sensor is really hard to pin somebody on unless you have a camera right outside the door. There's all kinds of things that go on that, all the stories that I've heard many stories just like what you've been saying, but it's so true.
So talking about the vape sensors and cameras, we purposely put cameras right outside of our bathrooms, and what we figured out a way through some if this then that programming that if the vape sensor goes off, it talks to our cameras and takes a minute from before the vape sensor goes off and 2 minutes after the vape sensor goes off. So that way it's more pinpointable. And we've had parents argue that the timestamps are wrong. No, they're not wrong. Well, my daughter wouldn't do that. Well, we found vapes in her bag, so she would do that. So it's a lot of, you're constrained by the district policies, parents, students lying, students telling the truth. It's difficult to navigate, to say the least. Are there any other questions, maybe from online? Nope. I think that's about my time. Thank you, guys.